you in to another edition of the Four Corners Podcast here on the Chairshot Radio Network, a part of the Chairshot.com, where we remind you to always use your head. No sound effect for the Four Corners Podcast. It's just not how we roll. Patrick Redowd, I am joined, of course, by my good friend, the lawyer himself, David Ungar, who still, if you can see his screen, allegedly can overrule me. But we all know that as the number one chair shot villain, it's not really how things work around here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you love what we do here on the Chairshot Radio Network on the Chairshot.com, make sure you head over to ProWrestlingTees.com/the Chairshot for all of your Chair Shot swag needs. Still no Four Corners t-shirt, and that's okay. Dave, I gotta, we'll just start. How's it going? How we doing today? This lovely Sunday morning for you. Happy Memorial Day weekend.
It is going pretty well, man. How are you doing? I'm just actively changing the background and logo here for us.
Great. Then you'll blend in with the background. I faced a harsh truth playing with like the different digital backgrounds that too many of them make me go completely invisible because of the lighting in this room. So I don't really care because if you see the basement studio, it kind of is what it is. I do have a confession to make about this week's show. This almost became the trial run of Park Dads.
Oh, because of where I was this past couple days.
Not only because of where you were. Tomorrow, actually no, Tuesday. Tuesday is a huge day at Walt Disney World. It's already been a huge week this week at Walt Disney World, as you know, in both the Disney parks, like summer season kicks off with Memorial Day weekend. That's kind of their unofficial start to the summer. Disney World does a promotion to get people to endure Florida weather in July called Cool Kids Summer. It's anything but cool, people. It is 9 bajillion degrees. But they do a lot of really fun stuff. However, it's a huge day on Tuesday for Disney's Hollywood Studios. I don't know if you know this or you've been keeping track. So official on Tuesday, the 26th, Disney's Rock and Roller Coaster starring the Muppets opens. It used to be featuring Aerosmith. They have completely reskinned it to the Muppets. Dave, I do, as somebody who I know has a mutual appreciation for the Muppets, I want you to say, if you haven't, jump on YouTube and check out the footage of the scooter animatronic that they've created and how great the Disney Imagineers did in making that animatronic act and move like somebody's puppeting the character, as opposed to just being a straight up animatronic. They do a really, really great job. All reviews coming out of this reskin has been very positive. They're treating it like a Guardians of the Galaxy thing where there's a soundtrack of music and you get a different song every time. So you never quite know what you're going to get. They kept the Statler and Waldorf animatronics from Muppet Vision 3D, and they heckle you at the end of the ride. Things look really, really great. So there's that. Also, with the release of The Mandalorian and Grogu, they changed the Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run story to be a Mandalorian and Grogu story, such as it is. If you want to hear more thoughts on Mandalorian and Grogu, go back and give a listen to our Bandwagon Nerds podcast where we talk about this movie.
My understanding was that the Mandalorian and Grogu is like bonus footage that you have to score high enough on their regular run to unlock it or something like that on Smuggler's Run, but I don't know how that would work.
From what I understand. So that sounds like an urban legend because the lines to access, because the Mandalorian and Grogu thing opened up this weekend. I think it opened on Friday. The lines
I could confirm there was no Mandalorian and Grogu. It was the same stuff we always have.
It was batshit crazy at Disney World on Friday, on release day of that. So I don't know. I haven't written it. I know it's coming. I know Mandalorian and Grogu were wandering around Disney's Galaxy's Edge over in Florida. I'm sure they were.
Did you see Pedro Pascal showed up at
I did
at Smuggler's Run at Disneyland?
Well, let me tell you about the land of fake controversies. All right, so it was this thing that Disney put out, and they didn't say who the people were that they did this for, but it turns out that it was a bunch of social media influencers that got this experience, and so it led to some pushback and some crying from just people being like, they made it sound like it was this like totally organic thing for like regular fans, or like people who Disney isn't trying to get to like push this, and it turned out to be these influencers who got to see Pedro Pascal. It was already special with it being the Mandalorian in the Millennium Falcon, and then it turns around and it's Pedro Pascal as in costume.
Yeah.
The From what I understand, the influencers did not know that Pedro Pascal was going to be there, that the Mandalorian was going to be there. So the reactions were genuine. But some fans, because we always have criers that weren't influencers, are like, this is so Disney to make it sound like this is this completely organic thing for just regular park goers, and it wasn't at all. And that's kind of fair. I also get what Disney's trying to do right now, because while the Mandalorian and Grogu is going to win the box office, it's not going to hit projections, from what I understand. So, or expectations were lowered. We'll go that way.
I
But
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
right, I'm sure we'll talk about that on Bandwagon Nerds. So go
Excuse me.
back and listen. Go back and listen to
Um,
Bandwagon Nerds.
I was
Uh,
going to say one thing about the park, my visit to Disneyland that last this week, because we were there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, although I did not go in Tuesday. But my son went in all 3 days. And I think it was Tuesday, Justin Bieber was at the park, which was kind of
mhm.
interesting. I'm like,
Heard
he's
about
like,
that.
he's like, Justin Bieber's here. And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. Well, that's kind of cool. But it was shit packed down there because the Southern California, the 3 day pass was expiring on the 21st. So
Mm,
everybody was trying to get that in combined with grad nights. So it was, you can imagine how much of a
right.
mess that place was. But it was still, and Pirates is shut down. And Pirates is a big people eater. It eats up a lot of
Yeah,
volume and it takes away from the vibe of the park when that ride is not going. It
it's
was
an.
it was very strange.
I'm not a big Pirates of the Caribbean ride fan. Like, I've never
Well,
been
you
that guy.
haven't been on ours, so
I, I the concept is fine. And I'm sure if I ever make it out to California, or when I make it out to California, I'll ride it. I know it has multiple drops. It's not just the one drop. It's a different sort of ride system and all that.
it's
My
yeah.
big thing about it, though, and what I appreciate about it, is not only does it take up a lot of people, it does have a good load speed. The
Mhm.
way like people get loaded and put into the boats and moved on, like it does keep churning. So even on a busy day, like at Walt Disney World, for example, and I'm sure it's the same in California, busy park day, you can kind of count on a low-ish wait time for Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah,
Like if you
15
go over
minutes.
30, if you go over 30 minutes for Pirates, then it's a crazy ass day at a Disney park.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Exactly.
But here's the other stuff that's going on. So not only did you have that going on at Hollywood Studios over at Galaxy's Edge, over on the other end you have previews that it started, and I haven't seen yet, but with it being so close, you might get a soft opening of Rock and Roller Coaster. All the influencers and annual pass holder previews have been going on, and people have been raving and reviewing about that. But Disney had shut down what used to be known as Star Wars Launch Bay over on the right side of the park, where it used to be the meet and greet spot for Chewbacca, BB-8, and Darth Vader, and it had a neat little museum dedicated to various Star Wars props and some movie posters and stuff like that. Well, that is being completely reimagined into Disney's Animations Courtyard, which is a callback to the original Disney's Hollywood Studios buildings, one of which would have famously the Sorcerer Mickey hat over the Disney Animation Building, which is designed to look like the animators studio in Burbank, in California. And they've gone to a lot of work to recreate this. And part of that was taking this big, dead, empty space courtyard and reimagining it as well. And it has become Disney's Animation Courtyard. And I got to tell you, Dave, the it's awesome. It just sort of a and not in a it's gonna blow your socks off sort of space, but they've added a lot of trees there. There's benches to sit around. There's nods to California and Burbank and the location of the studio and road signs. There's a corner that says Pluto's Corner that's just there. I hope that they turn that also into a Pluto meet and greet in some way, shape, or form. It just makes too much sense. And then they added these, and they're still doing it. They're adding these statues, these like small statues hidden throughout the whole courtyard of various characters, and not necessarily like characters you would immediately think of. For example, Diablo, the raven from Sleeping Beauty, is perched being harassed by bluebirds from Cinderella. Like that's the statue. There's Jock and Gus Gus standing next to Timothy J. Mouse in one spot. Lucifer the cat, and then they have on the courtyard itself, much like the Grauman Chinese Theater, they have these sidewalk planks with handprints, but they're all handprints and autographs of Disney animated characters. And
That's cool.
and not just like characters you know. Chicken Little, Dave. Chicken Little has a handprint sidewalk square in this place. The Long John Silver with the robot hand has a handprint square in this space. So I look forward to getting back to Disney World, probably not until my 50th at this point in 2028 to see it. Well, my Disney trip in 27 is in February to go to Alani in Hawaii. Like that's the goal. So
Okay.
kind of an exciting deal, different sort of Disney resort, but we're going to do it. So folks, that's thank you for humoring me. Thank you for letting me give you a little bit of Park Dads. This is maybe a one-off episode show sort of thing that I'm ruminating with. I haven't really talked about it with a lot of people. We'll see if any of the other talking heads within the chair shot listen to our show and and give thoughts on what they think. But because of Dave and I, and again, it's crazy how this world forces us together, Dave. If I were going to do this show with anybody, it would be with you to talk theme park stuff and not just Disney.
Yeah.
We're talking Six Flags, we're talking Universal, we're talking, that time Dave goes to Knott's Berry Farm. We're talking if I ever go back to Branson, like theme parks everywhere because they are a passion and a hobby of ours, and we do like to talk about stuff other than that. Like they just announced Hollywood Horror Nights' first land that's coming this year, and it's for sinners. People are very excited about that, so
That's gonna be cool.
that should be really cool. I hope to see it, and I know I will because I follow influencers that go to Hollywood Horror Nights. It's going to
Yeah.
be great. So, just something I've been ruminating with, and this was a big weekend for the Disney parks in particular, just in Disney World, opening up a ton of stuff this week that's going to hopefully help Hollywood studios a lot and start to divert some of that traffic. With so many lands closed and things just not available, having
Yeah.
stuff that people can do there is important. It's the same problem Animal Kingdom is dealing with over there right now until they can get Pueblo Esperanza up and running, the South American land, because it took over Dino Land. So, anyway,
Right.
most of you tuned in today for sports. We have two topics today. We're going to talk playoffs. We're going to start in the NBA, take a commercial break, and then we'll talk about nut punches with hockey sticks. Did you see that? Did you see that in the Montreal Carolina game?
I didn't see that, but I have
Oh,
no
dude,
doubt that it got
yeah,
chippy.
there was a stick to the nuts. I can't remember who took it. On
Nice.
either, I can't remember who did it and who took it, but pretty blatant too. It wasn't even like he tried to hide it. But anyway, we're gonna start with the NBA playoffs. One conference final is looking like a dud as the Danhausen curse. Yep, there. Even I will talk about wrestling on shows that don't have to do with wrestling. Really seems to be working in the Knicks' favor right now. As the New York Knicks are up 3-0 on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Even Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift could not turn the tide for the Cavs. It's a matter of when, not if at this point. What
Right.
have the New York Knicks done to take this commanding lead, and do they have any shot against whoever wins the Western Conference Finals, which is a 2-1 series right now in favor of the Oklahoma City Thunder, last year's champs?
I mean, with the Knicks, ever since there were 7.5 minutes to go in game one, this series has been over. I mean, when Cleveland had that 22-point lead and a 99.9% projected chance to win, and they couldn't hit shots down the stretch. They
Right.
couldn't make threes. New York suddenly started making every three known to man. And ever since then, this series has been over. New York has outplayed them in every facet of the game. They're shooting the ball better. They're playing better defense. They seem like they're just more energized. And I told my nephew-in-law, he's a huge Knicks fan, and I told him, I was like, man, after game one, I was like, this series is over, because I was like, you don't come back from a defeat like that. I mean, you can, but you have to have a special sort of team, and Cleveland is not that team. Now they showed a lot of guts and a lot of moxie by getting past the Pistons in game 7 on the road. But if they were going to have any hope in hell, it would have been last night's game 3 at home. And they got boat raced for most of that game, and it just wasn't close.
Right.
New York just does all the little things better. They're just a far, far better team. And this is a team that hasn't lost in a month. They haven't lost
Right.
in a month. As to your question, can they compete with whoever comes out of the West? Yes, they absolutely can. I look back to last year, and everybody thought, oh, Indiana's got no chance against Oklahoma City. Push them to 7 games, and but for Halliburton getting hurt, maybe they win that thing. But the Knicks are playing better than anybody in the NBA, and you also understand in that other series with San Antonio and Oklahoma City, probably going to go 6 or 7 games, and they're going to beat the shit out of each other, and that's going to be a tough, tough series. Whoever wins that is going to have to go through an enormous hill to climb to get to the NBA Finals. Um, all things being equal, I think Oklahoma City, San Antonio is a much better team, and they're going to present many different challenges than the Cleveland Cavaliers do for the New York Knicks. And the Knicks aren't sweeping one of those teams, but can the Knicks pull this thing off? Just watching how they're playing, I got to say, yeah, they got as good a shot as it. I don't think the gap between the East and the West is as great as prognosticators claim, especially not at this time of year when you go into a one series sort of situation and you're looking at momentum, and the Knicks have boatloads of it. So that's
Sure.
my take
Indiana,
on it.
Indiana had boatloads of momentum last year, and yes, they did push it to 7 games. But eventually, ultimately, the depth of Oklahoma City was too much. Especially with Halliburton out, and that's what I think is going to happen over on the Western Conference side of things. Is the Spurs are very, very good. Obviously, Wemby is a freak, and it always cracks me up to watch him play because he's so damn skinny. But and not that Oklahoma City doesn't have their own skinny tall guy and Chet Holmgren,
Oh, home,
but
yeah,
it
Holmgren.
but like it's like they got a pair of giant swizzle sticks out there playing basketball. It's just Wemby can do so much more. The thing is his supporting cast is just not as good as Shea Gilchrist Alexander's supporting
Yeah,
cast. 2-time MVP, back-to-back MVP winner, and I can't remember. I meant to look. I'm going to effort it real quick. I think the next game might be tonight.
I think it's tonight. Yeah, because New York
Uh,
and Cleveland played last night. I
right.
think one of the big things that Oklahoma City
Yes,
has
on
done.
Peacock. On Peacock tonight, the Spurs and the Thunder. Spurs down 2-1 in that series.
Yeah, you're not gonna keep Wemby probably under 25 points, but Oklahoma City's starting to figure out how to play this team effectively, and it took them 2 regular season games in game 1 to get there. But now you're if you can keep Wemby under 30 points, like they have him at like 25 the last couple times, you really give yourself a good chance because of what you're saying. Because San Antonio does not have the depth that Oklahoma City does, and they don't have the experience. It's a young team. I think we talked about this last week that it would be great. It would be a great experience for them to play the defending champions, and I think it's going to pay off dividends over the next couple of years. This experience, but like you're saying, OKC's got depth. They've got their own experience. They know what to do. If Wemby goes off for 35, 40 points, and like I expect him probably to do tonight, San Antonio will probably win tonight and make it a best of 3. But I kind of look at Oklahoma City winning this in 6, that sort of
Right.
situation.
Yeah, we'll
They
have
just,
to
like you said, they're better. They're just a deeper, better all around team at
Right.
this point.
I could see a scenario where Oklahoma City wins the series, but Wemby wins MVP of the series. Like
Mhm.
walking out of it, like people would be like, "Oh, Wemby was the most valuable player in the Western Conference Finals." That's
Yeah.
kind of the difference in the depth. So we'll have to see what happens there, and that'll continue tonight. We're gonna take, for those of you not listening live, we're gonna take our quick commercial break. For those of you listening live, give me about 2 seconds to pause quietly to give Dave a time marker, and then we're going to jump in and talk a little NHL playoffs. Because again, sticks to the nuts. It's been quite a series, a couple of final series so far in their own rights. So stick around for that. You're listening to the Four Corners podcast here on the Chairshot Radio Network, part of the Chairshot.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Four Corners Podcast. Patrick O'Dowd, David Ungar here on the Chairshot Radio Network, a part of the Chairshot.com, where we remind you to always use your head. ProWrestlingTees.com/the Chairshot for all of your Chairshot swag needs. And Dave, the NHL playoffs cooking right along as well. Though I say this every year, I hate when we get to conference final season. Because when we get to conference final season, suddenly there are days between games. And the best part about the early rounds of the playoffs is it's like game after game after game. And just like one day you're on the CBS networks and then the next one you're on the ESPN networks. And when it's down to
Yeah.
two, it's one game. Tonight, as we're recording this, it's on ESPN as Colorado desperately needs to figure out if they can win without Cale Makar and beat Vegas in Vegas. And that's that it's not going so good, Dave. Not
No.
to not great, Bob. Like that's
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at here. And it's amazing how much of a difference one player makes when he's out. And Cale Makar, a guy I got to see, I didn't get to see him in person. I missed him in person at home hockey games, but certainly watched him lead the University of Massachusetts to its lone hockey national championship before then immediately starting. Or no, he didn't actually. That year they made it to like the Frozen Four, but they lost. It was the following year that they won it or something because it was the COVID year. Because Kale, as soon as UMass was bounced, he was in Colorado, and he has proven himself to be worth every penny of a draft pick and contract, and he's showing it right now. Like the leadership is missing, and Colorado's offense just does not look right. It doesn't look sharp. The way like they were killing people, and they can't seem to get it done. And Vegas has a lot to do with that too, defensively. But I you got to win, right? Obviously, and that's such a simplistic thing to describe. But
Well,
Vegas is not. Vegas is getting it done, and they are not letting Colorado operate. They are not letting them skate
no.
freely, and it has made a huge difference in this
Well,
series. And they find themselves up 2-0 at home.
Colorado hadn't lost a game all regular season or the playoffs when they entered the third period with the lead until game two. And and you got to give. I think two players on Vegas you got to give a lot of credit to, especially for game two. Jack Eichel, who finally got them
Yeah,
going
he had a hell
by
of a
getting.
goal. Hell
He
of a goal.
did
Bad angle, and he got it.
bad
I don't
angle,
know. Whew.
got the zone entry, and you got to give mad pop props to Carter Hart, the goaltender for Vegas, because Hart has had his own up and down issues, and of course, when you're playing with the Philadelphia Flyers the last few years, you're going to have those issues. But boy, is he a stabilizing force in net for I mean, when Vegas won the title a couple years ago, they had Aiden Hill was the goaltender for them when they won the
Right.
championship, and they kind of they went from Flurry to Hill and then kind of like floundered around last year, but yeah, I think like you're saying, not having Cale Makar is a huge blow to the Colorado Avalanche.
Right.
It disrupts their offensive flow.
They still
And
have him listed as day to day, but even when he's played, it's clear he's hurt. Like it's
right,
just clear he's not 100%.
right. And I mean, I'm gonna go with the team with better goaltending all the time, and I think Vegas has the edge there. Mitch Marner's played well, but Vegas is like they're kind of like you look at the way that the Knicks came back in game one of their series, but the Vegas Golden Knights have been doing this the whole playoffs. I mean, just a bunch of third period comebacks to get wins. And this was no exception. I mean, now we both know, you and I know this as well as anybody from hockey talk all those years, that home ice doesn't mean jack and shit when you get to the NHL playoffs. It helps.
It
It
does. It
helps.
doesn't hurt.
It
What
doesn't
does
hurt.
hurt is personnel, and there are
Yeah.
personnel missing. So I think it does make
And
a
Vegas
difference in that
has
respect.
yeah, Vegas has a lot of momentum. I mean, they you
Right.
know they closed out the Ducks when they had to. They won the first two games here. Like you're saying, Colorado desperately they've got to get game three, and at least put that shred of doubt in Vegas. And can they do it? Absolutely. They've got McKinnon's there. They've got all sorts of talent all up and down that lineup. So can they win this game? Yeah, they've got to deliver. Even having McCarr somewhat healthy would be a boon for the Avalanche right now. But you're right. It doesn't look good, Bob. Unless you're a Vegas Golden Knight fan, then it looks fantastic. Great. You're in golden shape for the Golden Knights.
Right, very much so. I love how you did that. The other series, much more exciting, Montreal and Carolina. Carolina had been rested. Speaking of teams that had not lost in the playoffs, they were
Yeah.
just mowing through everybody. It was
And they
efficient.
started game one so great. They scored like 23 seconds in, and it's like, oh, this is going to be a
Right.
runaway. Nope.
And then Montreal digs deep, wins off that 7-game overtime winner to make it into the finals, and they get one. As we like to say, it's not a series until somebody wins on the road, and
There it is.
Montreal did it. We are coming back to Montreal. Series tied 1-1. That game will be Monday. Um, Interestingly enough, the Carolina coaching staff and players after their game 2 victory, where Carolina was mostly in control of game 2. And Montreal,
Yeah.
Montreal got the equalizer in the third period, but Carolina scored like 3.5 minutes into the overtime period. Game was over. It was done like that. It's so
Yeah,
crazy
it was a
how
bad,
those
bad line change by Montreal that
right,
and Carolina
it,
took advantage.
right, and that's what good teams do. And so Montreal, but if you're Montreal, you come off this grueling 7-game series. Now you
Two,
did get
two grueling
two,
7-game series. Yeah.
and you get a little bit of rest. I worry that the fatigue starts to hit now because a
Mhm.
lot of times people think, oh, 7-game series, other teams rested, they're going to get swept. Not necessarily. The momentum of, especially the way Montreal won that game with the overtime winner, kind of changes your perspective a little bit. And I just wonder if game game 2 you started to see some wear. You get a little bit of rest before we go into game 3. What happens here with Carolina? Was it a false positive from Montreal?
The Canadians, I go back to goaltending again, and Dobish has been phenomenal this postseason for Montreal. I can't say enough about him. That the Bell Center, as I believe the name of the arena in Montreal, is going to be on fire for games 3 and 4. That's going to give the Canadians a big lift. They've played pretty well at home. I mean, they had some hiccups against Buffalo. Both teams had some hiccups at home. But I think that game one showed that Carolina is not invincible. They can be beaten. But on the other hand, Carolina with a real gritty and hard earned win that they absolutely had to have last night. And like you're saying, they controlled most of the game. They outshot Montreal badly. We saw in Game 7 against Tampa that means nothing against the Canadians.
Not
Um,
always. Yep.
Sometimes you don't. It's not how many shots you put on net. It's how many go in. And Montreal has been really good at that. You got to like Carolina in the series, mainly because of what you're saying. That wear and tear, and I know people don't appreciate it. They're like, yeah, oh yeah, whatever. But yeah, you go through two grueling 7-game series, both of them decided in overtime. It's not just the physical; it's the emotional stress and everything like that these guys are going through. Uh, I do think that catches up to them sooner or later, either this series or the next. I mean, I like Montreal to at least challenge Carolina, and if Dobis plays up to his potential, Montreal can certainly win this thing. But it's a tall task against a very rested and really talented Carolina team, who, I mean, you got to look at it and say, well, no Florida Panthers this year. They got to win in the conference finals. That's better than you can say last year. sort of thing.
That is
So, so
that is true.
I think I'm with you. I like Carolina long term. This one will probably go 6 or so. I think Carolina wears them down eventually. Carolina is not exactly. A lot of people confuse them with being this finesse team. They can get down and dirty and physical too, and I think that
Right.
they'll eventually wear down the Canadians, and you probably end up with. And if it's Carolina Vegas, I'm not really going to be that upset about it. I would like to see Montreal get there to keep that hope of a Canadian Stanley Cup alive, but it's a tall task, man, when you're
It
talking
is. It
about
is
that
indeed.
team. Yeah.
And I think that by next week we're probably going to be talking and breaking down a Stanley Cup final. So we'll save that for next week as we come up on the end of our small but mighty podcast. I'm excited for it. I'm going to watch the game tonight. I think it'll tell us a lot about what we're looking at going for. Montreal
Oh
wins
yeah.
this one, then okay, we can have a different conversation. So, all right, Dave, we are coming up on time, which of course means that I need you to tell everybody how they can follow and find you on the Chairshot Radio Network and other broadcasting networks across the internet.
Well, I discovered this the other day, so I'm just going to post this up here. There you go.
Ooh, look at
Attitude of
you.
Aggression. I know. Attitudeofaggression.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. You can go to the YouTube channel, which is, I got to actually get that address in there too. But it's the Attitude of Aggression's YouTube channel where a lot of the episodes are airing and a lot of the things that we're doing, involving the Attitude of Aggression, the wrestling podcast, Unidentified History. Game Gone Wrong. We're working on bringing that back in the next few weeks as we get ready for House of the Dragon season 3. But yeah, that's pretty much it, my friend.
All right, you can follow me on the socials at Wrestling Realist. That is at WRESTLNGREALIST. You can catch me every Monday, Tuesday, and most Wednesdays on the Chairshot Radio Network. Mondays talking nerdy stuff with Dave, PC Tunney, and Ray Cash. Great episode this past Monday for those of you who are listening when we actually drop the recorded podcast. For those of you listening live, it'll be great tomorrow, or you're listening live to it today as we record it here on Sunday. All kinds of fun stuff. Tuesdays, talking sports with David Ungar, and Wednesdays, talking wrestling with Greg DeMarco when we feel like it. Thank you ever so much for everybody for listening to the Four Corners podcast. That's going to do it for us this week. We're going to probably be talking NBA and Stanley Cup finals before you know it, and then it's baseball all the way the rest of the summer. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. This has been the Four Corners podcast here on the Chairshot Radio Network, a part of the Chairshot.com.